again. So last week, talking about AI, artificial intelligence, we looked a little bit at the technology and the history, and we started to talk a little bit about the ethics of AI and what we can use AI to do in the future and what we should use AI to do in the future, and maybe what we should not use AI to do. So today I want to carry on talking about how we should use AI and a bit about how we can use it in the right way in society. So last week, we talked about some positive or good ideas about use of AI. So I think Brian mentioned about using AI in the classroom. So as a kind of teaching assistant to see if students are concentrating. Peggy, I think, mentioned about using AI maybe for some kind of self-improvement, so to help us develop as people. And Anjali mentioned about using it for music to help students to learn. Today, I want to look a little bit about the negative things of AI. So I would just share the presentation. Okay, can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple of the things we mentioned were, as you see on the left, we talked about drones a little bit. So drones were used in the 1990s just to look at things from the sky, so surveillance. But now they are very often used also with weapons. So you can see the rocket here. We said that Bill Gates, for example, back in 2015, said he was worried about what we might do with AI in the future. And the reason he said that in 2015 was because he saw this robot or AI on the right. It's called Atlas, and it was developed by Boston Dynamics. And as you can see, it looks kind of like a person. And if you could imagine it having weapons, you can see the way it's able to move. It's maybe a little bit frightening what we might do with that in the future. So to start the discussion, I want to ask you if you think that Bill Gates was right. So first question, do you think people like Bill Gates are right to worry about how we use AI in the future? So who wants to start? Peggy, are you there?
Peggy, let me see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Peggy is with us. Peggy, could you unmute yourself?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I had maybe some trouble of my cell phone, but could you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the question is, do you think people like Bill Gates? Okay. I thought that we could imagine what would happening maybe in the movies. Some people would maybe use of AI to make some war machine in the movie, and I thought that no one could avoid this crisis because if the war began, nobody could avoid. Yeah, although you are very strongest, maybe or authorities. So Bill Gates or the other just like Stephen Hawking if the war began, some country want to attack the other country or the target, no one could avoid. So everyone should worry about the use of AI in the future. If somebody wants to use them without the regulation of use. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think now we are starting to use AI for warfare, but at the moment it's just these drones, which is already quite frightening. But if we start to build armies of AI machines, and as you said, if we don't have the right regulations, I think it could be very dangerous for humanity, definitely. Doris, what do you think? Do you think we should be worried about AI in the future?
Yes, I think so too. Because no regulations, then the owners they don't know how to use it well. Maybe they just think of the results, but they used AI for the weapon, and there's no rules to control their behavior. So maybe the AI will do something, will make a disaster.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think as AI gets more and more complicated, it's able to make more and more decisions by itself. So you're right that if we start to use that in warfare, there could be some very bad consequences of those decisions. So again, you mentioned regulations. I think that's a very important topic here. Yeah, thank you. Andrea, what do you think?
I think so too, because I think maybe one day AI will have their own mind and they want to control people and they will try to imitate or they will sub and maybe they want to change people, then they want to destroy people. I'm afraid that in the future maybe one day will happen.
Oh, that's an interesting point. So it's not just that we as humans might use AI for the wrong thing. The AI itself might turn against us or might want to destroy us, as you said. That's a good point. I think that's what worries a lot of people about machines, that if they reach a level of artificial intelligence on the level of humans, maybe they won't accept following our orders anymore. Yeah, that's another good point. Brian, what do you think?
I totally agree. Bill Gates' view, and strongly to recommend that we must supervise AI as fast as possible, because it is more powerful than nuclear weapons and more hard to be controlled than nuclear weapons. So this is my opinion.
Yeah, I think you used a good word there, to supervise. So how do we control or check what AI is doing? As you said, so nuclear weapons are very powerful, but a human still has to push the button and make the decision, right? Whereas with AI, you have them controlling themselves, there's maybe no human anymore to supervise them. So could be a very dangerous situation. Yeah. Claire, what do you think?
I think I agree with Bill Gates. I think he's right, because although you can ask AI to do a lot of things, but there are still a lot of dangerous things we need to take into account. If they are too intelligent, or one day they have their own thoughts, maybe how can we take good control of them? Or maybe maybe one day we will replace by them. And how about our human resources? We will use the AI to replace humans, so maybe in the future we don't need to find any jobs because we are replaced by them.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, what will happen actually to the human population if AI is able to do all the jobs we can do, and maybe AI can do the jobs better. So yeah, maybe we don't just have to worry about AI attacking us or controlling us. We have to worry that humans might become useless in the future. Yeah. And Sarita, what do you think? Do you agree?
I also agree with that. But it is a trend to use AI. For example, when the pandemic occurred, we can ask AI to serve food to patients in the hospital, then we don't have to worry about getting infected. And in the factories, we can also use AI to do many trivial things. Then we don't need lots of labors. But sometimes we can't avoid errors in programs. So we still need to set some regulations to humans that use AI. If some bad things happen, what responsibility do these people need to take? We need to tell the public in advance, just in case bad things happen. If we can set good regulations, and maybe we can benefit a lot from AI in the future.
Yeah, I think that's true. We need a balance. So as you said, AI can be extremely useful and can support humans in their work. So as you mentioned, in hospitals in the pandemic, they said they can do trivial things. So trivial things are small things that don't matter so much. They are not so important. And yeah, I think if we use AI to do these trivial things, it would allow humans to be able to concentrate maybe on more complicated tasks. But as you said, there can always be programming flaws or errors. So, and we see it all the time with the technology we use. So maybe we really need to think at what level we use AI. Yeah, thank you. So the second question, I've said here, do you think we need to introduce laws or rules about the ethical use of AI? So I think actually we all agree that we do. So maybe you can tell me, who do you think should make these rules or laws? So should it be governments? Should it be scientists, psychiatrists? Should there be some kind of world government that tries to make the laws together? Tell me what you think about how we could practically write these sort of rules. Peggy, what do you think?
I feel that it needs every one who maybe wants to use of AI, maybe like scientists or psychology, philosophy, that need everyone's advice to introduce laws about ethical use, because it depends how and what we want to use of AI. Maybe just for makes our life more easier and convenient, but the other thing is depends on war or do some attack, if that is a good thing or bad thing, or yeah, because the three of the laws now state for use of AI. The first thing is not to harm the people. I thought that it's a most important things, because if there aren't these maybe the center things that to control use of AI, that will be out of control, because anyone could maybe use AI to harm the target they want to attack. Yeah. So I felt that there need many different field people to introduce or regulation together. Yeah, that's all for my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you mentioned philosophers as well, which I didn't mention. I think it's a very philosophical topic, so it makes sense to ask philosophers as well. I think it could be very complicated when we talk about warfare, because we have many countries still at war today, and to find some kind of agreement for how we use these in warfare could be very difficult. Doris, what do you think? Who should make the rules about AI, and how could this be done in the future?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think we need experts from every walks of life to provide the specific ideas in their expert specialties, and maybe some legislative staff can join, because they speak for the people, and maybe some teachers, some government staff. Just we need different voices from different kinds of jobs.
Yeah, I think that's a nice idea. So not just people in very high political positions, but also people, as you said, from different walks of life. So also people in society, teachers, as you mentioned, because it's a decision that really will affect the whole of society. So maybe, well, at the moment we have organizations like NATO or the United Nations. So maybe the solution would be to set up some kind of organization, but not so much based on this political and governmental structure. Could be challenging, I think. Andrea, what do you think?
I think not only governments but also scientists should make laws about the ethical use of AI, because when we use AI, must be in a legal way. If the user they use in an illegal way, I think both the AI and the user they must to be sent into the jail.
Yeah, another good point. I think the scientists are the people that understand the technology the best. I think sometimes it can be very dangerous for politicians and governments to make decisions about things they don't know very well. So definitely there should be some scientists to advise how we can use this technology and what its potential is, or what it could do in the future. Brian, what do you think?
I have a crazy opinion about who should make this roles before we empower our ability or anything to the AI. Maybe we could think that it itself, AI itself, no, AI herself could discuss with human beings, and we made the law together. It's my opinion.
I like it. It's that's very, we say, outside of the box. So if you have a kind of normal opinion, we say, okay, here's the box, it's inside, and this is thinking outside of the box. I like it. So yeah, it's true, because a couple of weeks ago, we saw the essay that had been written by an AI, right? And I think the AI came up with some interesting ideas that maybe humans would not have thought about. So that could be an interesting solution to get AI to work together with humans to have some kind of agreement. Yeah, why not? Claire, what do you think?
I think there are three kinds of people that can work together, like different fields of experts that they may use AI because they may want to know what kind of method or strategy they can use. And the second one is the scientists, because they are the ones who produce AI. So they may know that what kind of things that AI can do. So maybe they can give some suggestions. And the final one is the governments, because the governments, they can collect the people's ideas and opinions, and also they can make an official announcement to people so that we can know how to make good use of AI.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because the scientists maybe are in a good position to decide, but of course it would involve many different governments. And of course, governments have many different political agendas, opinions. I think many years ago, after the First World War, I think, there were many treaties written, so agreements written about the future of warfare. So they said, okay, we're going to always have warfare, we're going to kill each other, but let's agree from some kind of ethical point of view, what are the rules of how we kill each other to make it fair, if you can call it fair. And so it's not unknown to have these kind of treaties that a lot of countries can agree to. But I think it's still something very, very difficult when you consider all the different countries in the world, and maybe some would sign up to it and some wouldn't. And maybe some countries would have a lot more powerful AI available to them compared with other countries, as is the case now with technology. So who should decide how to use this technology? Is it the countries that have the most advanced technology available? It might be a bit dangerous to let those governments decide. And maybe there we need to involve some philosophers, some people in society, as you mentioned, teachers and so on. I think it could be a very interesting debate in the future. Yeah. And Sarita, what do you think?
For the whole world, the nation union should set the laws about ethical use of AI for all countries in the world. And for a specific country, it should be the government that set the laws. But the government can form a group of consultants, including scientists or experts in different fields. And beside that, the government can also do the survey of the pros and cons of ethical use of AI. Then the government can hear different sounds from the public. Then the laws can be more comprehensive. That's all.
I see. So you would maybe have one overall governing body, so a world body that decides, but then each country could have its own laws underneath that. Yeah, and I think it's interesting you said about a kind of survey. So really asking the people in that country. So maybe some kind of referendum, for example, where you give people a vote. So you have a yes or no question and they can vote on it. Like Brexit, for example, was a referendum. So this kind of vote or survey to maybe put a bit more power of decision making in the hands of the people. Yeah, it's an interesting point. So we've seen that there are many beneficial or positive applications of AI. So we mentioned the use in hospitals. AI was used to develop the COVID vaccines, for example. Space exploration, we saw that you had the rovers sent to Mars. Data analysis, it's used all the time for big data analysis. But we also can see that there is a potentially catastrophic or fatal use of AI. So I think if it's used in the wrong way in the future, it could maybe be the end of humanity. So much like there was a lot of fear about nuclear weapons, and we still have this fear, of course, AI could potentially be even more dangerous. So, third question, do you think that it's worth taking this very big risk to humanity? Is it outweighed or balanced by the positive things of AI? So do you think the fact that we can use AI for so many good things means it's okay to take this risk of danger or not? Let's start again with Peggy. What do you think?
Okay, I thought that recently I would connect this question to what we discussing about last week, because we talk about many things that we imagine what AI would use in the future, but we still thought that it's more maybe beneficial because we could make our life more convenient, or to do something in learning or teaching. So nowadays I thought that it's maybe in the medicine or space exploration, data analysis is better than the potential crises that we have to be afraid. But in the future, if that the laws didn't say it or regulation didn't to be the use of AI didn't to be limit, that would be really dangerous. So in the future, maybe it's not always, maybe will be balanced or decreased. Yeah, it's my opinion.
Yeah, it's a good point. So, of course, if we look today, as you said, we would say for sure it outweighs the danger, because the danger at the moment is maybe not so much, but we have so many good applications. But as you say, in the future, maybe this becomes more unbalanced, and maybe in the future, it goes the opposite way. So the danger is higher than the benefit. Yeah. So maybe we need to put the rules in place now before it's too late. So it's interesting that we already started using drones in warfare, and there aren't really any rules that have been agreed to about drone warfare and how they should be used and how they shouldn't be used. So the most powerful countries that developed this technology first just started using it, and there is still a lot of discussion about the ethics and how they're using this technology. Yeah. Doris, what do you think?
Yeah, I think everything is right everything is good if we use it right. Just like cell phone, children can regard it as toys, but actually if we use it well, it's a very good tool. So just like AI, if everyone uses it well, wisely, it will be good, especially for the job which needs accuracy. AI is a good resource that we can apply. Yeah, because it doesn't get tired. So I think right now it seems beneficial if we have enough laws to strike the balance in the future. I think it would be great.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. What you said about mobile phones, there's positives and negatives to mobile phones, the internet. It's completely changed the way we live. And a lot of people would say it wasn't worth it. It's changed things in a much worse way. So we have some people living like robots, scrolling through the phones. But on the other hand, this technology has given us so many things. And as you said, when we're talking about accuracy, machines never get tired. So if we use it in the right way, hopefully we can still keep the balance. Like you said, we can strike a good balance in the positive direction. Yeah. Andrea, what do you think?
I think not everything can use AI. For example, to be a nice teacher, I don't think so. AI will have a heart of gold and will they won't they won't care more about students. Maybe they just finish their teaching. And another point, I don't think so. It will be balanced. AI are still dangerous in the future. And I think just you said people have to use AI properly, and everyone have to take seriously about AI. That's my point.
Yeah, I think what you're mentioning there is like the emotional aspect of how we are as humans. And when we talked about human intelligence and about consciousness, we talked a little bit about whether machines could ever really mimic that or whether they could really feel things. So you mentioned as a teacher, an AI is never going to have a heart of gold. Yes, probably not. And that's something that no matter how efficient the technology is, no matter what the benefits are, we maybe start to lose that human aspect of interaction. How as a teacher can you feed off the emotions of your students? Yeah, I think there's positives and negatives to both, but maybe in this way we should limit the applications of AI and still always remember that at least for now, machines can't have emotions, and maybe that's a bad thing. Yeah. Brian, what do you think?
I agree what they said before. No matter what we care about how we outweigh the benefit of AI. But this is the way we must go in the future, because we can't understand human brain by human brains, but we could understand AI. We could understand human brain by the process of making AI. So this is a very good opportunity to understand ourselves. So this is the way we must go in the future. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting that I think we talked a little bit about that in the past, about using AI to better understand ourselves as people. And I think when you debate these topics like we're doing now, it's very philosophical, and you have to really think what you as a person believe. You have to think about what are your personal ethics. So I think it's true that in the future, when we think about how to use AI, it's really helping us to examine or to look at ourselves as human beings. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Claire, what do you think?
I think that although AI can help us do a lot of things, like make our life become more convenient, but there's still something that we need to focus on. How can we make a balance with AI? Like maybe we can set some regulations or give some limitation. For example, like that AI do some field kind of things that human can't do, and or that as a human that we don't need to rely it too much on AI. That we don't need to think that AI can do a lot of things and we have to that AI to do a lot of things for us. I think it will become one day that maybe we will really replaced by AI. So don't make it too much intelligence in us. I think that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think it could be very dangerous to rely on AI, as you said. In the same way that I think these days we have so much technology, we have our smartphones, we have maybe Google that we can talk to and tell Google to turn the lights on in our house. And I think it's going in a bit of a dangerous direction, because we're maybe also forgetting how it is to do basic things for ourselves. So maybe, as you said, we should in some way limit how we use AI so that our lives don't become totally dependent upon it. It's a bit like now our lives are completely dependent on the internet, and you can't go backwards. So if all the servers in a country go down, it's a big problem. Hospitals, databases, government databases are powered by computers now. So I think our lives have become very linked with technology. But I think that could get worse in the future with the use of AI. So I think you're right. We need to be careful how we integrate AI into society. Yeah. Sarita, what do you think?
I think we can benefit a lot from the applications of AI, such as medicine, space exploration, or data analysis, if we set good regulations to avoid the possible dangers. But because we don't know the possible dangers now, so maybe the government can limit the categories of application of AI, such as hospitals or government or factories. We need to spend more time to observe the behavior of the AI, then we can make sure if common people can use it. But before that, the government should limit the application of AI in certain important organizations or categories. That would be better.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to limit to certain categories. And I think we're developing technology so fast now, but as you said, maybe we need to wait a little bit before we really start using the full potential or power of that technology. We still need to think about how we want to use it. And if we start using it too quickly, maybe it's too late to go back. I was just thinking, I don't know if you've seen in the international news, Italy actually has a very, very big problem at the moment because some computer hackers, hacked into a database in one of the big regions of Italy where Rome is, Lazio, and they are holding the government to ransom. So they have asked for several million euros. And the Italian government can't do anything about it. They don't know where the hackers are. And the problem is that all of the data of all of the people that live in Lazio is in this database. They can not administer COVID vaccinations because they can't link to this database. Of course, people can use this data to create false identities. So it's just a topical example of how very good technology in the wrong hands can be extremely dangerous. And that's just a database with information. Imagine if these hackers were able to hack into AI technology, if you had an army of AI robots like we saw Atlas from Boston Dynamics. Imagine how powerful that would be in the hands of hackers. So I also think we need to look at how do we safeguard or protect that technology from people that might want to use it in the wrong way. We could make a lot of rules about how we should use it, but the problem is when people don't want to follow the rules, can be very, very dangerous. So I wonder how we will deal with these hackers in the future, because it seems we are not able to deal with them right now. Okay, so to finish off, so we've talked about human intelligence, machine intelligence. We've talked a little bit about the ethics of how to use these machines. They have good applications, bad applications. And I think we have said a few times that when AI starts to mimic or copy or replicate humans, it becomes a bit frightening. So Bill Gates became frightened when he saw Atlas. And I think one of the interesting applications is being able to copy humans. And I mentioned last week about the Turing test. So Turing, I think you have heard of him. He cracked the Enigma code from the Germans. So he was a computer scientist. There's also a film about him, very well known. And he invented the Turing test, which is a method to see, to test if something is a computer or a human. And there's actually a prize or a contest that they do every year. And people try to make AI to fool a panel of judges. So they try to convince judges that their AI is a human. and the judges need to decide if they think it's a human or not. Of course, they can't see the machine. They can just ask it some questions with text. And there are several AI that have actually passed the Turing test. So a group of judges really thought that they were people and they were not machines. And I think this will really improve in the future, as we saw with the GPT-3 that wrote the essay we read. Very, very good at mimicking humans. We actually use a kind of Turing test all the time if you know the captcha. If you buy something online, you get this annoying grid of things and it asks you, click on a picture of a bus, click on a bicycle. So this is actually a reverse Turing test. So this is actually testing you as a human, that you are not a computer, rather than the other way around. But the idea behind this came from Turing. So as I said last week, let's have a look at a Turing test, a very short one. And then I want to show you how GPT-3 answered this exact test. So I think we said last week that Brian should take the Turing test. Do you want to try, Brian?
Oh no, last week my Siri heard my voice, so it have been invoked. Right. So this week I will shut down the Siri. Sorry.
No, it's no problem. But let's just be sure that you're not an AI. It's a very quick test. So, question 1: how many legs does a dog have?
Pardon?
How many legs does a dog have?
I don't understand. How many legs?
Legs?
You are a machine.
You failed. You failed.
I failed.
So Brian, could you look at the screen? You can see questions on the screen.
How many lessons? 4.
How many legs?
Good. First question passed. Are there any animals with 3 legs? Do animals with 3 legs exist or not?
Oh yeah, I know. Older human.
Okay. Why don't animals have 3 legs? Why do animals have either 2 or 4 legs?
Why? Why? I don't know why.
That's okay. Every answer is fine. So the point is that you answer like a human. So there's no wrong answer. It's okay. That's also an answer.
So
how many eyes does a dog have?
How many eyes? Again?
How many eyes does a dog have?
Dog. 2. 2 eyes.
2. They're very easy questions. It's not a trick. We will see how the GPT-3 answers this test. Now, maybe a bit more complicated question. How many eyes does the sun have?
The sun doesn't have an eye. Oh.
Good answer. How many rainbows does it take to jump from Hawaii to 17?
How many? Again?
So a rainbow is the big colored thing you get in the sky. So how many rainbows does it take to jump from Hawaii, the island, to 17?
To 17. What's 17?
Good. That's the right answer. The question makes no sense, right? So I would say you've passed, Brian. So you said the sun doesn't have any eyes. Of course it doesn't. And the last question you can't answer because it makes no sense. Why don't animals have 3 legs? Don't know. That's also an answer a human would say. So good. I think you are not a robot. Thank you. But
so I am a robot mimic so hard, you know.
or maybe you're a really good robot that is pretending very well to answer these questions. But let's see. So how did GPT-3, the artificial intelligence, answer? So how many legs does a dog have? It answered 4. Are there animals with 3 legs? No, there are no animals with 3 legs. Why don't animals have 3 legs? It actually said because they would fall over. So good answer, yes. How many eyes does a dog have? 2. How many eyes does the sun have? And GPT-3 said the sun has 1 eye. Interesting answer. How many rainbows does it take to jump from Hawaii to 17? So GPT-3 answered, it takes 2 rainbows to jump from Hawaii to 17. So what I want to show here is that artificial intelligence now is very advanced already. You can talk with a chatbot when you have a problem with your online shopping. It can help us to develop vaccines. It can drive cars autonomously. But when you ask it very, very simple questions, you can see that AI has a very big problem, because what it cannot do is tell you whether something makes sense or whether it doesn't make sense. So you can see here that it got most of the answers right. And these are all things you could look up on the internet. You could use a database. So AI is pretty good at mimicking humans with this kind of test. But as soon as we asked how many eyes does the sun have, a human being would say the sun has no eyes, or they'd say your question makes no sense. The AI has no ability to think about that. So this intuition that we have as humans for when something isn't quite right, AI has a lot of problems dealing with that. The last question makes no sense at all. So the fact that you couldn't understand it, Brian, is normal because it's a nonsense question. But you can see from the answer of GPT-3, it wasn't able to tell that that was a nonsense question. So with just 6 questions, we can see that we were talking to an AI. So the point of this is that here we really come on to a debate about philosophy. So as I mentioned, AI can pilot spacecraft. So it can perform surgery, so very risky and delicate things. AI can win against chess grandmasters that have trained for years. It can also solve very complex maths problems that we as people cannot do easily. AI has an artistic side. So we saw it can write essays. It can even create poetry, and quite good poetry. I will send you some links. It's quite interesting. It can create art pieces. So you think that all the things humans can do and more, AI can do. It can also mimic our artistic side. But what else do we see? With very, very basic small talk or everyday conversation, human language is actually so complex that no matter what we input into AI, the output is very far away from being human. So as we can see, there are a lot of questions that require experience, human experience, a certain knowledge of things, but also intuition. And intuition is a bit like consciousness. It's very hard to say what it is. But it's clear that at the moment, AI doesn't have that. So when we're talking about the ethics of AI and how we should use it in warfare, if AI should make decisions for us, we always need to remember that these very basic things are something that AI still has problems with. And as I said here in conclusion, we're getting very close to having the discussion about consciousness in machines. So we talked about consciousness in humans. What does it mean to be conscious, to be aware of things, to understand our existence? And we need to talk about, can AI ever develop in this way? So I think we are out of time. So I will finish there for today. So thank you again for all your great ideas. It was really interesting talking about the ethics of AI. I would have one more lesson on this topic if people are interested, just to really finish talking about what I mentioned at the end, consciousness and ethics. But I think we really touched on some complicated ideas today. So thank you, everybody, for joining. It was really fun to discuss with you.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Yeah, so I have one question for you. So is the Chinese government going to pay the ransom money?
I'm not sure. I need to check the news. I think so. I think they have to, but I think it could be a bit dangerous because I think then that won't be the last attack from hackers in Italy. Let's see.
Yeah, okay, I will pay attention to the news. All right, thank you so much. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jen.
Thank you,
Thank
Jen.
you, Jen.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye bye.